Welcome back to the Modcast. My name's Gabe Anderson,
I'm Jake Overall.
and we're here to talk about some modifications of stuff.
All sorts of stuff.
Yeah, starting out with some interesting stuff today.
Always interesting stuff. We're going to veer far away from cars and snowmobiles and talk about going to space.
Yeah, that's a little different.
So this past weekend there was a second scrubbed attempt, actually two attempts over the weekend, but there was a attempt prior of Relativity Space sending their 3D printed rocket into orbit.
Now, this absolutely blew my mind. You told me about this launch probably, about 45 minutes before the initial scrub,
Yes.
which was, it scrubbed 3 times technically that day. No, twice, right? Because it was the one where it was like a minute or so left on the countdown. But the second one that was very interesting was the fact that all of the engines fired on the second scrub. It was, 0 on the countdown, and then they had to kill everything again.
Yeah, so basically what happens, I think they were saying, is at the 70-second mark, the computer on board takes over the full launch sequence, and then the computer gets to make the decision of whether or not it actually scrubs from there. So they tried to put this thing up. They've done lots and lots of testing, but it didn't work out that day. So what makes this rocket so fancy is 85% of its components are 3D printed, including the storage tanks, if I'm not mistaken, the fuselage, basically everything that you can see. And then they had to bolt some parts together.
They also used a lot of the engine components are 3D printed as well, correct?
Yeah, so this rocket that they're making has what's... I don't know if all rockets have this. I'm not too versed in rocket science, otherwise I probably wouldn't be doing this.
We like race cars and regular cars, not too much in it. I mean, they're cool, but just don't know much about them.
Yeah, exactly. So the bucket engine injector, essentially what happens is they take the fuel and the oxidizer, the oxygen, and this injector mixes it in the combustion chamber of the rocket, that dome that you see at the bottom where the big fireball comes out. And traditionally, these have over 1,000 parts, from what I understand, and they take about 9 months to assemble and check and probably disassemble and reassemble and all the man hours that go into that. But they're able to 3D print it in one part instead of 1,000 or more in 2 weeks, and it cost about 1/10 as much to do.
Now, that's absolutely insane because, I mean, even a year ago, they've been around. This company you said was about 6 years now. They've been around.
6.5 years they've been around.
So 6 years ago, or right before they started, I mean, the cost of going to space was insane, and they're talking about chopping it to 1/10 of the cost and a fraction of the time.
Oh yeah, their goal, I believe they stated, was to start to finish print and have a rocket ready in 60 days.
That's insane,
And
that's actually insane.
Yeah, it's completely insane. And traditionally, I guess NASA, their launch vehicle, it takes about 11 years to fully develop it and put it together.
Start to finish, hey, let's launch it just for it to get halfway into orbit and go.
Yeah. So the other thing that makes this rocket so special is it's methane powered. So it's a methane and oxygen combination. And there's only been one other rocket powered by methane that has gone to space, but it didn't make it to orbit because its second stage failed for whatever reason.
It was incredibly interesting to watch it on the launch pad because they actually had a fire burning in a tower off in the distance off the rocket, and that was to burn off the excess methane at that point, right?
Yep. So I kind of have an idea of how this goes together, but I'm pretty sure that's basically your purge on your nitrous.
Makes sense.
They got to burn it going into the atmosphere, otherwise it's just pure methane, and we're not trying to add more greenhouse gases.
It's we got enough.
We have plenty of methane. So Relativity Space is pretty cool if you want to know more about it. Obviously, here's their website. They're showing assembly and toting this thing around. Hopefully their next launch attempt of this vehicle goes better, because it'd be pretty sweet to see them succeed. I think it would be cool to see what they can do along with SpaceX and everything.
And I mean, they 3D print rockets. Come on, that's insane.
Yeah, there was a video that I watched about this, actually, where they were talking about when you are melting metal essentially. When it cools, it warps. You know,
Right.
like when you're just
Yeah,
welding.
just like welding.
Yeah. So they in-house built their own software to basically analyze that happening and then reverse that process so that they actually weld in such a way that when it cools, it warps perfectly straight.
That's incredible. Now, that was also through the use of some of their own in-house made alloys as well.
So yeah, all their alloys are made in-house. So they have, metallurgy specialists in there. You can see that the surface of the rocket doesn't actually look smooth. It's kind of rough. Apparently that only adds like 5 to 10% of this much lower weight rocket vehicle. So they're not concerned with smoothing it out because their aerodynamics are the same, evidently.
Yeah. That's the guy that's way smarter than me was saying that it's the exact same. They don't have to worry about it. Now, there are parts that they do machine. There are parts that do have to be perfectly straight, but they just saw no reason to actually make the fuselage outside of it perfectly smooth.
Yeah, it would just probably be more of a wasted cost for them in manufacturing to be doing that sort of a thing. Because I guess even with the rough surface from top to bottom, the rocket body is perfectly straight within half of a human hair.
That blew my mind when he told me that. I mean, I don't remember exactly. It's 7.5 feet wide, and do you remember how tall it was?
I don't remember how tall it was, but they are currently working on another model that is much, much larger than the one that they're currently attempting, the Terran 1, to put into orbit. So I think SpaceX has their competition cut out for them, because this factory is far smaller than any other large industrial rocket factory.
Oh yeah.
So
and it's cool to see that they're actually out there too. Like I like to see other small startups achieving, absolutely incredible things.
Yeah. Well, that's, there's a lot to learn about rocket technology. Obviously, these guys are on the cutting edge, but I want to talk about some technology and modifications that we don't like.
Yeah.
Which is kind of changing gears for this show that we do.
Yeah, we're talking about bad modifications. What's stuff that is off limits?
Yeah, just don't mess with it, because that is really something that should not be messed with.
Yeah. So regardless of the race car versus street car thing, there's definitely an argument for all of your EPA-controlled emissions devices on a vehicle.
Sure.
There's arguments in both directions to why you should or shouldn't do those. Mm-hmm. The modifications we're talking about are stuff that's basically making the car something it isn't.
Yeah.
So
criminal.
Yeah, we're not talking about up badging a car. We're talking about scratching a VIN number,
Right. Replacing it with a different one that maybe says that it's something that it's not.
Yeah, which we'll get to in a second on there. But a good thing you brought up as well is changing the odometer on a car.
Yeah, odometer fraud is $1 billion a year net loss to the average, to the American consumer, not the average consumer, but to American consumers writ large. And it carries a whole host of other fraud charges along with it, because once you've actually transferred the title of a vehicle, and if you've put the incorrect mileage on there, that's title fraud. Mm-hmm. And then if you've sold this vehicle and the loan was given on it based on its value at that given mileage, that's now bank fraud. If you've sold it, typically people who do this, at these, dealers, or I wouldn't even call them dealers, but these con artists. Stealerships, big time stealerships. If you don't actually transfer the title, you kind of are impersonating the original owner of the car before, you received it, so that would be aggravated ID theft.
Title hopping is the term that people to use for that.
So title hopping makes that aggravated identity theft, and then there's also wire fraud, and there's mail fraud if these things were done online or over the phone and then sent through the mail. So there's a whole host of issues that comes along with this, and it's just not needed. This used car market has been pretty crazy over the past
and people have
years.
For sure made their money on it.
Oh yeah, a lot of money.
Yeah. You don't need to be going in and selling. And the other thing, too, is it's not only are you screwing around with the car itself, but the person buying the car is getting incredibly screwed at this point. Whether they're buying something that's beat to hell that, has 1,000,000 miles on it, but, the odometer says it's got 87,000 on it or whatever, right?
Exactly. And it typically affects, lower income folks who end up buying their stuff at a used car lot with really high interest rates. So they think they're getting a good car and they might be able to pay that down, but they're really not. They're getting somebody's leftovers and they're paying a premium price on it for no reason.
Which is, it's just not okay. And really this stuff needs to stop. Coming as being mechanics, there's a lot of bad stigmas in the automotive industry. Like your mechanic's always out to get you. The car dealer's always out to get you. And unfortunately, it's there because, not all the time, but I mean, it is true. There are those people out there, and it really needs to just stop.
I wouldn't be very happy if I found out something like that happened to a vehicle I bought.
Absolutely not. I would be furious.
I think a sales manager might be in a pretty bad way if I find something like that out happens.
Yeah. Now, kind of back to this VIN number thing we were talking about. There, and this also, we are going into week 3 of talking about some Ferrari-related things here, which is kind of fun.
Yes, Ferrari.
But there is a very interesting lawsuit that's going on right now.
Okay.
It involves Adam Levine, the lead singer of Maroon 5. He's also on a couple of various TV shows and whatnot. He's just a celebrity, right?
Sure.
So he is currently suing a automotive dealer, an antique auto dealer, for $950,000.
Okay.
Very good chunk of money.
Yeah.
For what he's calling fraudulent deal that they made. I believe it was in 2020.
Okay.
So, out of Adam's collection, he traded to this auto dealer a 1968 Ferrari 365 Gran Turismo Coupe.
Okay.
And a 1972 Ferrari 365 Gran Turismo Coupe.
Wow. Okay.
2 incredibly nice cars. At the time of the deal, the cars were appraised to be worth $950,000. Hear that number come up again?
Weird.
So, in return for these 2 Ferraris, now, when I say Adam Levine, so Adam Levine, this is actually in his trust, and the trust is actually who is filing the lawsuit currently.
Yeah, sure.
So, in return to the trust receives a 1971 4.9 liter Maserati Ghibli Spider and $100,000.
Okay.
Because at the time, the 1971 Maserati was valued to be $850,000 plus the $100,000 cash. Straight trade at that point, right? Mm-hmm. So, a couple of facts about this car real quick. There were only, in the year 1971, there was only 25 of the Spiders produced.
Okay.
The car in question currently is AM, or Alpha Mike, 115-429-1241.
Okay.
Is for this particular car that he got in the transaction. So the reason why this is being filed is because, according to the trust, it has altered VIN plates on the car, making it something it isn't. Mm-hmm. So the number stamped on the chassis showed evidence that were aftermarket additions to the car, or basically, according to the LA Times here and a couple other sources, the imprint styles on the tags themselves are different than the imprints and the stamp shapes that Maserati actually used in 1971.
Oh, no.
So, this is not good. Now, even just as a normal Ghibli, these cars are worth a lot of money.
Yeah, sure.
But a coupe is not worth anywhere near what the convertible is worth by, a third of the value.
Oh.
Yeah. Oh. Big price difference. And there's some modified car at this point in time.
Right.
Cool modification. We like that portion.
Yeah, right.
We don't like the VIN number portion.
Yeah, somebody's stealing money at that point.
Yeah.
Based on a false pretense that this is a very, very rare car versus a pretty rare car.
Exactly. And I mean, he also got rid of 2 gorgeous cars.
Yeah.
There's a little bit of a sting to it as well. It's not only did you not get something that you were promised from a dealer that allegedly modified all this stuff. Mm-hmm. I'm going to say allegedly because this is all still an ongoing case.
Yeah, we obviously don't know.
But,
for sure.
There has to be some sort of legitimacy to it.
Right.
Because the big reason why this lawsuit happened in the first place is because they were actually trying to sell the car, and the dealer that he got the car from was trying to get him to not sell it.
Oh.
Thinking there was some sort of shadiness going on. Mm-hmm. And then they found out that before Adam's Trust acquired the car, The car was previously in an auction and was pulled from said auction because there was questions about its legitimacy at that point in time.
Oh,
this was in
no.
2015.
5 years go by.
And then all of a sudden, the car's pawned off in this direction. I'm not saying any of this did happen. I'm just saying it doesn't look great.
No, it looks pretty bad.
Yeah, really pretty bad. That's a good way of putting it.
Yeah.
But, yeah, this is stuff that we really need to avoid. I mean, you know, it's bad publicity, if nonetheless, besides the fact that, you know, in this case, he got screwed out of, I mean, I think the couple of values I saw, I think a regular Ghibli coupe is worth like $300K.
Okay.
So you got $400,000, which means you screwed out of $550,000 in value.
Right.
Like,
which it doesn't matter how much money you make, even if you are the lead singer of Maroon 5. That's still going to piss you off.
Yeah, it's still, it doesn't give you, just because you make all this money elsewhere, it doesn't give you the right to just take money from him.
Yeah.
It's still his money.
And they still got his Ferraris.
Yeah,
So, like,
and exactly, which, you know, he probably made some sort of a deal on. Probably, you know, I'm not going to say those deals went bad, but I'm sure he made his money on them.
oh yeah, he's not in the business of losing money.
Nope.
So that's why he's doing the stuff that he's doing now. But he got
you
caught,
sure?
So, yeah, no kidding. Got us a little out of order here, but let's get back on track.
Yeah. So actually, right before we had started watching the launch from Relativity, I actually got to fulfill kind of a childhood dream of mine, which was getting to ride some old, incredibly rare snowmobile. Actually, I didn't get a chance to ride it, but my childhood dream was I got to ride a 1975 Mercury Snow Twister.
Mercury Snow Twister.
Yes.
I remember you talking about these things when we were younger.
Oh, they are so cool.
And if I'm not mistaken, I'm not sure if it's this exact one, but there was a guy where we used to race who used to have one of these.
Yes.
And it was always
the fastest sled. It was the fastest sled by far. If Frank was in the race, the guy that owned that other Merc, if Frank was in the race, you were racing for second.
Wow. Yeah.
There's no questions asked. Unless his sled broke, you were racing for second. You weren't going to beat it.
That's insane.
But so this is a gorgeous example, honestly, that we're just showing on the screen here of I believe this one is a 1975. So, actually it might be a 74 if it's a free air.
Oh yeah, look at that.
So actually the one I got to ride was a free air now I'm thinking about it. Regardless of the case, these sleds are very rare. They only were made for a couple of years in production, and it's just a snowmobile that was, I mean, in its heyday, it was the fastest sled you could buy. And if you go to race them, they're still incredibly fast. They're really cool looking. And I've always wanted to ride one. And I was actually given the opportunity by a neighbor of mine, luckily. He just picked up this 1975, which now this sled, without any documentation, unfortunately, but just by looking at it, you can tell it's an old oval track race sled.
Yep.
It's a sled. This was the trail version that somebody cut the whole headlight assembly out for better cooling right into the engine.
Kind of like our drifter.
Yes, exactly. El Diablo.
El Diablo.
But this sled was, it was so much fun to ride. It needs a little bit of tuning work done on it.
Sure.
We don't know exactly how much RPM it was pulling. The lighting coil on the CDI not on the CDI. The lighting coil on the sled is bad, so the tack wasn't working.
Okay, yeah.
But just kind of going by an RPM, riding the sled going wide open, it needed like 2,000 more RPM.
Okay.
For some reason, it just wasn't getting up to the RPM. It was very doggy when it was wide open.
Sure.
When he purchased the sled, it had a 7,000 RPM engaging spring in it. That has its original 440 in it, but it's actually been modified to have a Polaris P85 primary.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. So, which is kind of cool. That's like, for any of the older sled guys, that's stuff that came on like your Polaris Indies from the 90s.
Yeah, stuff we like to ride.
Yeah, exactly. 'Cause, you know, the 90s sleds. So, incredibly fun sled to ride. I was absolutely blown away that he let me ride it.
Yeah, that's sick.
Just to fill up a fantasy. He always wanted one. He actually grew up looking at these sleds in the brochures.
Wow.
And he was telling me, he was like, I always wanted one, but there was so much money. And he's like, my dad wasn't just going to go buy me one, or we couldn't afford one back then. Right. So he finally now can afford one. So he went and bought one.
Kept it in the back of his mind there for a while, and here it is. He's got it now.
Now...
to ride some other stuff, though, didn't you?
I did. So the next sled that we'll show you here is a 1977, I believe his was. Now, the one we're showing you on screen is just a good example of it. I actually don't have any pictures of this exact sled.
Sure.
But his is a 1977 Skidoo Blizzard 6500, I'm pretty sure is what he had told me.
Okay.
But his is a liquid-cooled 340. This one on the screen is a free air 340.
Yep.
But his currently has a 583 Rotax rotary valve engine in it.
Ooh.
And that thing hauls. It is so much fun to ride.
So we'll put the video in so you can see that. It's really loud, so you're going to want to turn your volume down.
Actually, that's the next sled we're going to show you. Now, this is the one I was
gun.
blown away by. This is absolutely probably the rarest snowmobile I've ever been in the presence of. It was a 1972 Skidoo Blizzard 575 triple. or 570... Yeah, 575 triple. The one we're showing on screen is the 340 triple. From what he had told me, there was about 300 of each engine size produced. The one that he owns originally raced in Montreal.
Okay.
And it is ear-piercing how loud this snowmobile is.
Yeah.
His is pretty much original. The hood is original. He redid, there's like the boot stirrups on the sides of the running boards. Those are powder-coated. It's got new powder coat on the skis. And I think he said he had the pipes redone.
Wow.
But it's an original sled. All of the components are original. And, oh my goodness. I didn't actually get a chance to ride it. My brothers did. And they said it was terrifying.
Triples are awesome.
Oh, it's great. But the fun fact about that's a cleated sled.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so that's like you hit a corner too fast and you're doing fast donuts.
Yeah, you are. Yeah, I've done that. May or may not have taken a Kawasaki Invader off the edge of the racetrack once or twice immediately, right in a row.
Man, I forgot about that race. That was the race that El Diablo wasn't running that right in.
That's correct.
Yeah, it was the opening race that we had put those stupid pipes on that didn't run or didn't work right. Oh well.
Yeah, you live and learn.
Live and learn. It was fun at the time.
So I'm going to wheel us back into Ferrari, though, real quick. So we had mentioned the Subaru with the Ferrari motor in it.
Yes.
So it is up and running, and it has had a shakedown test.
Ooh,
This is the video of it. Not going to play it here, but you can go and watch it at Sam Albert Riley's page. Going to bump up these subs because this guy's doing some cool stuff.
And he deserves it. I mean, look at what he's doing.
This thing screams. It's so good. Down in the comments, it was funny to see people saying, like, oh, you're going to get a cease and desist. Actually, it's right here. Within 3 months. Yeah,
that was callback.
Oh, yeah. Like, come on. This came out of a Maserati, though, didn't it?
If I remember reading it correctly in his stuff, don't quote me on it, but I do believe the Ferrari engine is out of a Maserati.
Okay. But either way, I mean... It
says Ferrari on it. He'll get one anyway.
Yeah, totally. And it doesn't say a Maserati motor. It says a Ferrari motor. So they'll probably hear from Ferrari. But they seem to be kind of caught up in all their own crap right now, trying to deal with the Formula One debacle of getting their butts kicked by,
everybody
teams, and probably a third one coming here if Mercedes gets their act together. So it's going to be problematic for them. We had also mentioned that Ryan Turk has a pretty sweet, 4586. We don't have to relive that, but he also built a pretty cool Supra.
He did.
And speaking of Formula One, it has the old school V10 from Judd in it. This is old news. Obviously, people know about it. He's driven it at Grid Life, which you went to.
I got to see the initial shakedowns of this car, and I tell you what, it is gorgeous listening to those V10 noises and just watching the body lines of this new Supra go down the track. I mean, it's damn near awe-inspiring is a good way of putting it.
I can't wait for him to get it totally dialed in and make that thing just stick and hook every which way. It's pretty fantastic.
That picture in the bottom corner, the road and track one.
Yep.
That's the livery. That's actually how it was set up when I saw it at Grid Life. And I don't remember if it was day 1 or day 2, but he actually went off track with the car and it broke the rear wing and the front lip off. Ooh. So the rest of the weekend, we literally were watching the stock bodyline Supra with the V10 noises. And I tell you what, that was cool.
That's sick. So, speaking of really cool Supras, we've got a guy here. So, this company is called Speed Force Racing. You can find them on Instagram. They do metal fab and high performance tuning of all different things. You got a Lamborghini here, but you can see this Supra with this pretty cool looking hood situation.
There's a lot of intake runners on that engine.
Yeah, there's actually twice as many as it's supposed to have.
Yeah, so that being a Mark IV Supra had a 2JZ GTE, or if it was a turbo one, GTE.
Yep.
What's in it?
This has the 1GZ V12 out of a Toyota. Oh, what was it?
It's the limo, right?
The limo, yeah. So it's basically
like a Crown limo. I don't think it's a Crown.
It's the Century. That's
there
what it's
you go.
called. Little brain fart there. So it's basically what like the Yakuza or the Japanese Prime Minister would ride around in.
Yeah.
So this
Fantastic.
It's a 5-liter V12. I'm sure some people know that already. He made this one a 6-liter. It is twin turbo. He did all the metal fab himself, obviously, because that's what he does. This has been his project for, I think, probably 8 to 10 years, maybe, at this point.
It's pet project at this point. I mean, it's his baby. Isn't it? Isn't his YouTube That Fast Supra or something like that?
Yep. So
there you go.
He doesn't have a ton of content on here, but if you look at his Instagram, That Fast Supra, it's nothing but this and some of the newer Supras he does work on and stuff. It's pretty sweet. This thing is all-wheel drive.
That was the part that we had to get to. So not only is this a 6-liter twin-turbo V12, but it's all-wheel drive and a stick.
And it's still a stick.
What?
Yep. The best part of this car, I think, is all of that plus its triple-pipe center exit exhaust.
Oh, man.
Inspired by the LFA.
Yep, that makes sense.
And it makes amazing noises. This thing makes 1,000 horsepower on 93 pump.
It's not even fair.
Nope. And everyone who rides in it, except for him, gets giant eyeballs and huge smiles on their faces. He looks like the most serious human you've ever met.
Let's be honest, if you're wheeling 1,000 horsepower in that thing, you're probably a little locked in.
Yeah, I could imagine.
Yeah.
Don't think I've ever been in a 1,000 horsepower all-wheel drive car, but if I was going to be in one, I'd want to be in this one.
The closest I've ever gotten was a 750 wheel Evo 10.
Oof.
And I tell you what, I don't get scared in cars that often. It's not just, I just like being in cars, so I don't get scared by much in them. And I was absolutely terrified in that car. I mean, I actually was shitting my pants. Backseat, I'm not a good backseat driver either, so, but still.
Right.
Anyway.
His other car, just honorable mention, is his, I don't know what kind of power it puts down, but I know it's not stock at all. It's his Mitsubishi 3000 GT VR4, which, if anybody knows, came all-wheel drive, all-wheel steer, stick shift with a twin-turbo V6.
Yes.
So more
great cars.
More big engine.
He's big into those 90s tuner cars. I really dig that.
This guy is like my hero. If I could be him and trade places and have all his knowledge, I'd do it in a heartbeat.
And I would.
Yeah, so...
You know who's another person that we see at Grid Life, though, very often? And I'm glad because he's going on tour pretty soon here.
He is going on tour.
Adam LZ.
Another Adam L. This one we're very happy to talk about.
Yes.
So we talked about Rob Dahm and all his rotary hijinks. Yep. This man's right here took a new Supra and he put a 4-rotor in it, and it's his new drift car.
Yes, that's what I like to hear.
Yeah, 3 days ago.
Literally here, because rotaries, God noises.
It's like it's comparable to like 2-stroke sounds.
Yes.
But it's in a car.
Because there's so much RPM. Oh, I love the sound of just insane RPM.
They're currently limiting it at 9,000 RPM until they get it sorted.
Oh, that's all?
That's all.
Oh, man, how dare they?
I know. It's terrible. I haven't looked a whole lot into this sequential shifter, clutch-controlled automatic Mark V Supra thing, but I think he's onto something here. He's, like it says right here, making an automatic Supra behave like a manual.
Well, I'm going to know what I'm watching when I get home.
So we're going to hop on into that, too, at some point, but yeah, this 4-rotor Supra, it's crazy. And I'm really glad that you mentioned that he's going on this tour. He'll be in New Jersey, which is in the States, obviously.
Yep.
He's going to Ireland, Canada,
okay,
and Australia.
Oh, Australia, down under.
There's a bunch of other creators, content people going along with him to do this whole thing. So it's going to be a big drift event, and the whole idea is finding the fun in drifting again, because
bringing drift back to the people.
He got into Formula Drift, and he's been in for a bit now, but he said it started to feel like just a job again. So he needs
to go have fun and drift again.
Yeah, he wants more seat time. He just wants to do the drifting and not just go to the same tracks over and over and, hit it for a few runs and then call it a day.
Yeah.
Like, it is a job at that point, and he got into it grassroots. Like, that's what he loves to do.
I need to bring up one other thing too. We didn't talk about it before, but it was it's a show on Motor Trend. It was a show that was hosted by Drift This is what it was called. They only did one season of it.
That's unfortunate.
It's the same thing. I don't know if you've ever actually seen this show before.
No, I haven't.
But it was Ryan Turek and Chris Forsberg were the two hosts, and they just took random shit and made it drift.
That's awesome.
I mean, like Hummer limo, drifting.
Awesome.
Donk, drifting. And like sometimes they did it sketchy. Everything got a handbrake.
Yeah.
Sometimes it got a welded diff. Sometimes it got a locker. It all just depended. Like, I don't even remember all the cars they did, but it's so unfortunate that they only did one season of it.
Yeah.
Because it's the same thing. It's find the fun in it again.
Well, you know what? Ryan Turk is he's kicking some serious ass these days, so maybe they'll bring something like that back. That'd be pretty cool to see.
I'd love to see it.
That'd be really nice. Speaking of welding diffs, just a little side note. Adam LZ, one of my old coworkers, met Adam LZ back in his grassroots days.
Drifting at all like the local grassroots stuff here on the East Coast.
Yeah, and this coworker I had, he went out and financed a stock 350Z, brought it home, and welded the diff to make it a drift car.
So much respect for that, man. Yeah. Oh, it reminds me of the Instagram page. The bank wouldn't like you doing that with their car.
Yeah, definitely not.
No, they don't like the welded diff. No.
And then what do they call those exhaust pipes where they stick way out past the bumper?
Bozoku.
Yeah, that's
like
he
that.
had
That
those
wicked.
on there too. Yeah.
Yes.
With the miter cuts and everything. Like it was a drift car for sure.
Yes. Oh, I love it.
Pretty awesome. But yeah, I think that pretty much gets to everything. Relativity Space is doing some pretty wild stuff in the space of rockets. And,
yeah, really give them a shot. I only just learned about them, after you turned me on to them this weekend, and it's something I want to see what they do. I mean,
yeah, they still haven't made it to orbit yet as of this podcast. So
yes,
I really
what's today? Today is March 13th.
Yep.
So we haven't. It's been a scrub every time they've tried to launch so far. Fingers crossed for the next time.
But the rocket is fully assembled, and they fired the engines. They just didn't do the liftoff. So
yes. Hey, the engines work.
They do work.
Look at the plus sides.
Something didn't work, which is why it didn't take off, but it works.
It turns on and it turns off. Look at the plus sides.
Hopefully they make it and they actually get past that second stage into orbit. That'd be really, really cool to see.
Absolutely.
Breaking down some barriers with Enginuity. I love it.
Sweet. I think that pretty much sums it up then.
I think so.
This has been the Modcast episode 7. I'm Gabe Anderson.
And I'm Jake Overall.
Have a good night, everybody.